Okay, so here's part 2 of that video. Apologies that it cuts off. I suppose the screencast creation software I'm using cuts off at 15 minutes, but I didn't realize that. So I was actually talking to myself for quite a while. Okay, so the assignment we left off on, me explaining to you briefly, was the qualitative research proposal. Let me reassure you that when the weeks turn up where these projects are actually assigned, I'll give you more advice and we will discuss your ideas as much as you want. So please don't panic if any of these seem a little challenging. So the qualitative research proposal. During the regular term of 201, what I do is have students create a research proposal, and they are free to choose qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods for their research. But for this project, because we are in a compressed summer session and we're not going to have time to cover all of those, I'm going to stick with qualitative. The other thing is that in the full-blown version of 201 from the spring, I think that a lot of students did choose qualitative research methods anyway. They are, frankly, used more frequently in the field, and so I think this will all work out just fine. So part of the goal of the 201 is to help students to see themselves, as the Joyce Kincaid reading will mention, as people who are fully capable of contributing new knowledge to the fields of writing, rhetoric, and technical communication. That is, instead of only sort of generating essays where they demonstrate that they've learned things that professors have provided for them, that they're actually thinking critically and adding new knowledge to the field, sometimes through original research. So what this assignment allows you to do is to design something of a dream study, something that you would do if, for example, you were not as concerned with securing a research site, with getting through the Institutional Review Board, which is the board responsible for judging research projects as ethically sound in terms of treatment of human subjects. If you didn't have to worry about all of these details that go into a qualitative project, what would you do? In some cases, when you have more time, you might want to actually pursue the research you come up with in your proposal. For example, later on in your undergraduate career, where you might be in an upper level WRTC course, where there's an open-ended kind of a project where you could do this work, or perhaps as a graduate student. So here's how you start this kind of a project. Think in broad terms about what has been interesting to you recently. So I'm going to give you an example of a student from the spring 2015 section of 201. She found the media coverage of sexual assaults on college campuses to be really, really interesting and intriguing. It made her think a lot. So I said to her, well, what in particular interests you about these accounts? And she said, you know, I think it's that women say that they've been sexually assaulted, but that they're not always believed. Sometimes their friends will say things to them like, oh, I know that guy, he wouldn't do that. Or what were you wearing, or what were you doing? That made her wonder. This is how she articulated these sort of curiosities as research questions. She wondered, why are sexual assault victims so often not believed? In other words, when a young woman reports a sexual assault, why do many think she is embellishing or even lying? And how do victims of sexual assault in that context establish their credibility? So, like the student, you want to move from a topic that interests you to research questions that fit with the field, or the fields, let's say, of WRTC. Notice that with this student, the questions have to do with credibility, and that's also known as rhetorical ethos, so it does fit in with the field. But I think you'll find that because the kinds of inquiries that happen in writing, rhetoric, and technical communication, and you'll notice this after you do the journal review project, it's so expansive. There's really a way for you to articulate good, solid research questions that fit in the field in a variety of disciplines, in a variety of topics. So you can always talk with me or your classmates if you're having trouble making that leap from topic to questions. So after you've got them, though, you want to think about a target population and a potential research site. So with the student who wanted to know more about the credibility of rape victims, she decided to look for a local rape victim support group as her target research site. Next, you want to think about the methods you would use to try to gather data through which you might be able to answer your questions. So, participant observation, in-depth interviews, and focus groups are three that you could think of. If you've got some prior knowledge of qualitative methods and you want to do something more specific, like a naturalistic inquiry or an ethnographic study, or some other combination of ethnographic methods, you're free to do that. But please feel free, if you feel that you are in beginner stages, to stick with one of these three or some combination. So since this student's topic was understandably sensitive, she went with the in-depth interview approach. In the end, this is what she handed in to me: a title, a statement of the problem, where she tells me in a few sentences why this is problematic. So it clearly articulates why the sexual assault victims need to know more about how to establish their credibility and how to be believed. Then she justifies the significance, and sometimes the difference between these two categories gets a little hairy. The way that you handle it is just fulfill the bullet points here. So you want to talk about the selection of the problem. So she would talk about the media coverage, these recent cases. Then she's going to look at what has already been done in the field that's relevant to this work. This is a really important part, and in fact takes up most of the space of the proposal, because what you want to do here is to give readers a sense of what's already been said about the topic, where the gaps exist in knowledge, and how your project could fill some of those gaps. And then you explain the significance for the advancement of knowledge, and that, again, the gap, right? So researchers have said this, this, and this, but they have failed to address that, and here's how my study fits in. Then you want to fill in your methods and procedures, which you've sort of generated in advance. So your research questions, your methods, the general characteristics of your study population. That can be a real population that you know about, or it could be something that you're imagining as an ideal scenario. The location or setting, and calendar of events. So I want to just see here, do you understand the time it would take to collect data for this kind of study? How would you arrange that? And then instruments you would use, or tools. So things like voice recorders. Would you use that for your focus group or your interviews? Would you need pens and notepads? And then you've got your work cited. And remember that when you come back into the justification for significance, that in that section is going to be where you are doing research, and so therefore you've got stuff to put in this literature cited in the proposal. And so I'll leave it at that for now, and just remind you that as these projects are assigned, I will be saying more, and we will have opportunities to interact with your questions and concerns in mind. I hope you'll agree that what I've put together here using this module feature of Canvas is a very easy to follow 4 weeks, where you will get a lot of the rigor of the regular semester 201, and you will do really great work, but you won't feel that the work is not manageable, and you won't feel like you don't have a lifeline in terms of getting in touch with me. So if you would, hop onto Canvas, introduce yourself, read these articles, start up with that journal review project by putting your journal selection up on the discussion board, contribute to these 2 discussions on the readings that you've done, and prepare your journal review handout. And if you do all of that during week 1, you are going to have a very good start to this course. Just a note about due dates. So the summer session ends on June 12th, which is why I have your final exam you're going to be able to take that starting on June 10th. Let me just go to the syllabus so you can see what I mean. Because I promised you that this is asynchronous, if June 10th is not a great day and you need to take it sooner, or possibly you want it on the 12th, it's not important to me that you take it on a particular day, just that you take 48 hours to return your answers. So start to think about that as you plan ahead. So welcome to 201. I'm super excited to see your introduce yourself videos and to see what you have to what you make of these what I think are pretty interesting readings, and how you handle that journal review project. More soon. Thanks.